Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Insightful Accountant webinar, Key Trends and Changes in Cloud Security, presented by Garrett Wagner, sponsored by Rewind. Insightful Accountant is an online news and information source written for small business advisors interested in the latest news and offerings in accounting technology. My name is Emily Hedrick, and I'll be your webinar host. If you have any questions during today's session, please enter them in the Q&A box, and we'll try to address them. Everyone will receive a follow-up email later today with the recording and presentation. Today's speaker is Garrett Wagner. The entrepreneurial CPA, Garrett Wagner, CPA, CITP, is an industry thought leader on a mission to fuel the entrepreneurial spirit and passion within the industry. With his ability to break free from the traditional CPA box, Garrett has embraced the entrepreneurial mindset and is set on helping others embrace the skills and knowledge needed to succeed. Garrett focuses on monitoring the evolving technologies and best practices in the industry to achieve the highest degree of success without being afraid to break free of traditional methods. Garrett's background includes working inside successful CPA firms, speaking at conferences and events, and consulting for CPA firms across the country, helping them to ignite lasting change by understanding the unique needs of each firm organization. Thank you, Garrett, for being here with us today. And when you're ready, you can get started.
Emily, thank you for the introduction, and everybody, thank you for taking time out of your, busy February to tune in. We're moving into 2021 now, and we all felt in 2020 was a little bit of a crazy year. And we got a lot of phone calls from our clients with different things that went wrong in relation to COVID and everything that went on last year. And this is a great place where what we experience as a firm and our clients really kind of comes together. So when it comes to that, what panic calls you get from your clients saying, oh my God, like the sky is falling, I'm in so much trouble, what can you do? A lot of these cloud security calls, we're seeing more and more of those. So how can you be ready, both when they call to know what to do, and also just a little more help your clients avoid falling victim to there's so many damages in the cybersecurity landscape. The challenges are real, they're here, and they're impacting accounting firms and our clients alike at exponential rates. Especially now that more people work from home, we're all forced to deal with that. For myself, both from the work we do consulting for firms, and we also are our own firm, C3 Advisory, we've had to deal with this on both sides and with our clients. And it's a great, simple way you can add value to yourself and to others that you work with. Because it's one of those things where you don't need to be an IT cybersecurity expert. You don't need to be a computer whiz. Just using some basic knowledge we'll talk about today will help keep you secure, protected, and those you interact with. And that's the most important part. I know Emily mentioned being that advisor to small business owners. That means doing more than just talking about their taxes and their payroll. Can you talk to them about other things in their business? And trends in cloud security, cybersecurity is a big part of that. So we'll keep it today very conversational. We're not going to talk nitty-gritty technical details that you might feel overwhelmed with. We want to make it feel like you can understand this at a very relatable level so you can talk about it with your clients, with your coworkers, with your peers as you go on a daily basis. So we already kind of got the background for me, Garrett Wagner. Like I said, work with CPA firms alike, and we own our own firm. So a lot of this stuff I'll kind of reference to how we dealt with it last year, either for ourselves or with some of the clients that we work with. And as every slide in the industry goes through, we always got to talk about what we're going to cover today. You can thank NASBA for that. We'll talk about some trends, the evolving area, and questions as you go. We've got people monitoring the chat, so if any questions that come up, feel free to let us know. I'm happy to pause and answer that as we go. We've got enough time here. So any questions you're thinking of in the audience when you're listening right now at your desk or working from home, send them out there. We're always happy to get started and answer them as we go. So one of the most basic fundamentals we all need to understand, no matter what our role is, where we sit, or what we do, hacking is no longer, like the slide says, just like one person doing this in the basement to try and make some money. Hacking is one of the largest global businesses that exist today. And that's what most of these hacking organizations view this as. It is a business. Now, it might be an illegal business, set up in some other part of the world, but it is a business nonetheless. And just like we talk about more and more being that advisory to clients, like KPIs, what's a KPI to them? The hackers have KPIs. How much money did each hacker steal today for the hacking entity they work for? And they have pretty high thresholds. All right. They're expected to produce every single day. And as a result of that, they're looking for the biggest bang for the buck, obviously. They're also looking for that easiest path in. Well, it is possible with some really advanced computer technology today to hack almost any password, no matter how long. These hacking organizations aren't concerned with that. That would cost them an exorbitant amount of money to buy these supercomputers to hack a really complex, like 36 random character password. It's going to cost them way too much money, time, and effort. They're much better looking for people that have no password or weak password, or whatever that easy way in. It's that same thing going back to the day when people used to go to a mall. People would drive their car to the mall. What cars will get stolen? Well, the easiest ones to get stolen or stuff stolen out of it are those people that don't lock their car door at all. That's the easiest one. So don't be that easy target, and don't let your clients be that easy target to somebody else. And understanding, like I said, that this is just not a solo person anymore. This is a big business looking to generate as much revenue as quickly as possible. So be ready, be prepared, and you got to fend off most of the hackers. Let them move on to somebody else. One of my colleagues, Joe Brunsman, cybersecurity expert, he always loves to say in this analogy, it's like getting eaten by the bear. You don't need to outrun the bear. You just need to outrun the next person next to you. And that's the same thing with cybersecurity. You don't need to have the best cybersecurity there is. You need to be better than most of the other people out there. Another big trend we're seeing in here, no matter what state you live in, you've got some different laws around cybersecurity, data theft prevention, and PII, personally identifiable information. Every state is different, and we can spend hours upon hours upon hours going through that laundry list. And it gets pretty granular. For example, in some states, your client's email address, if that gets breached online, and the breach would mean, let's say I email Emily here, one of my clients, just a general question on her tax return, because I type in Emily quick and I send it off. Well, if that includes Emily, my client's email address that I sent to Emily here, we've got a data breach, and I'm legally bound in that state to report that to my client that there's been a data breach. In some states, I might have to order credit monitoring service because of that. So every state's different. Pay attention to where you are. Look at the state laws. Stay on top of it. It's also an easy thing with most states' attorney generals are really enjoying prosecuting small businesses that breach these cybersecurity laws, because quite simply, it's an easy headline win for them. To be the attorney general in New York or Wyoming or Alabama and say like, oh yeah, we prosecuted Insightful Accountant for, data breach, not that they say they would. They're happy to do that. So once again, don't be that easy target. And whatever state you're in, reach out to an expert in your state and make sure you understand the nuances of your state law and what constitutes a data breach and what you have to do for it. I know on our side, we did a lot of PPP work last year, like so many of you did. And that meant dealing with a lot of payroll companies that would sometimes send us their documents so we could finish the PPP applications for our clients with the 940s, the 941s, the payroll reports, what have you. A lot of personally identifiable information was flying around left and right. A lot of those payroll companies weren't encrypting those emails or sending those emails securely to us. They just saw that request from the client, hey, email that off, and they did. Here in New York, it's a data breach that they just committed, and now it's an undisclosed data breach. And the penalty can be up to $10,000 a day per record for an undisclosed data breach in somewhere like New York. So those fines can add up, and you want to be aware of that. And something like this, you want to talk to your clients about this as well. You need to be aware of it in whatever state you are, and make sure clients are aware of the complex cybersecurity and compliance laws in all of their states. So that's a little bit of kind of like overview, some things to like think about and some easy talking points for your clients. Once you know what constitutes a breach in your state, it's a great easy conversation, a great email blast to have with your clients, just to let them know, hey, this is what constitutes a data breach in our state. Make sure anytime you email or disclose this information to someone outside your organization, it is sent securely. Also, just to purely cover your own side from anything that ever goes wrong, the fact that while an email to your client saying, hey, this is what constitutes a data breach in my state, be careful when you send it, might not be that glamorous or exciting or magnificent as an email blast, but that'll help you if the client ever tries to sue you for not disclosing that or not telling them ahead of time what they can and can't say. You can kind of point back to like, no, I sent Joe at ABC Corp this email that told him this is what is a breach in our state and not to send this stuff out. So he can't blame me now that he did that. Very important tip.
Hey, Garrett, before we move on, there was a great question asked in. William wants to know, so if we do business with various states, do we need to know the laws for each state that we're doing business in?
Great question. For the most part, yes, you do. We'll pick Massachusetts, for example. My CPA firm, we're in New York. We have clients that are in various states around the country. Most of those states, not all, say, if there's a resident from our state that does business with a business in another state, that business has to follow our rules. So that means like Massachusetts, that has much stricter cybersecurity laws than we do in New York, we've got to follow those rules. Now, technically, we have to follow it just for that one client, but that can get a little cumbersome on top of there. So we kind of said that, really New York, California, and Massachusetts have the strictest standards across the board. So if you look to those, you're generally best off. But yes, you are bound by a client you have in most states. So once again, it adds to the complexity and for things for us to stay on top of, and which is why it's really important to have just super strong cybersecurity controls and understanding inside your organization. You don't have a breach. You don't have a hack. You want to do these things we're to talk about to prevent that. Excellent question. Please keep them coming as we go. So now we're going to talk about we got 3 main tips here. We're getting to the first one to help you be more protected. And, frankly, it's one of the easiest ones. They just released their list of, I saw it on the news, like the top 20 most common passwords in the United States. If you have any of those passwords on the list, you need to change them just immediately. Like absolutely change those across the board. If you come across a client that somehow blurts out that their password is password 1, QWERTY 1234, 1234, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, anything like that, change it immediately. The same thing goes for any of your devices. Inside your organization, at home, with your clients, there are websites out there that will tell you the default password for almost any internet-enabled device. A great example, all those webcams. So many of us now have webcams inside our house. Whether we got kids, we got pets, we got a doorbell cam, whatever it is, in the United States, we love webcams right now. There's websites out there that just say, okay, the Waze model version 1, the default password is password 1 ! Which tells those hackers in that big business, remember, how does it get easy for them? They can do an internet search of IP addresses with a Waze cam attached to it. And boom, they're going to try a bunch of those Waze cams and they're going to try and get in with admin password 1 ! They're not going to try and hack this example we've got here, this complex password. That's too much time and energy. They can get a better return. Remember, they're a big business. They want that return for the least amount of effort. They can get that bigger return just looking for somebody that hasn't changed their default password. Across the board, it's the easiest, most impactful one on this. That's why your password doesn't need to be 36 random characters, letters, numbers, and symbols. Once again, you got to be better than the laziest person out there. The laziest people, They've got one of those top 20 common passwords. So change those passwords. Never, ever, ever, ever use a default password across the board for any of your devices in your organization, at home, or with your clients. That's an easy one. And then especially right now, as passwords have become more complex, password managers, their web tools are a must. They make your life so much easier. Like for me, I use LastPass. So every time I need to create a website and a password, I generate a new secure random password. I never know it. I've got one super secure password that gets me into LastPass. And that's it. Then it makes my life so much easier. There's even LastPass and other tools for enterprises. We use it inside our firm as well to help everybody stay on top of it. And speaking of passwords, one of my favorite stories, I was speaking at a very large hotel in downtown St. Louis, right next to the stadium. Every year I go there for a training, leadership training for CPA firms. And they've got a relatively new smart hotel room. And in the big conference rooms, the Wi-Fi password is like 6 digits. I don't remember off the top of my head. And inside all the conference rooms, there's this large touch panel display on the wall that controls not just everything in the conference room, it controls some of the stuff in the hotel as well. And one of the lunch breaks, I thought I just, got bored, started touching it. Oh, what's the password? I just put in the same exact password as the Wi-Fi password, those same 6 characters. I got right in there. And it was scary how many things at the hotel I could control, quite simply because, once again, they were just lazy. Here's a big national hotel chain that did something easy and obvious. The Wi-Fi password and the password again in their smart hotel controls were the same 6 random characters. It's not that hard to guess both. If that didn't work, I probably would have tried 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and a couple other easy things. But a lot of this hacking, that's what it comes down to. It's just as simple as what's an easy guess. So do not repeat, be that easy target. And remind your clients, do not be that easy target. Get a password manager. Make your life easier to stay on top of what's going around. That's the best advice when it comes to passwords. You control it. Just a slight little bit of effort. It's going to keep you protected. Also with passwords, remember in today's landscape, do not use the same password on all the websites you work with. There's also a ton of websites on the dark web that have hacked information. So it's going to say Bob Smith, his Yahoo account was hacked from a couple of years ago. Username bobsmith@yahoo.com, password 1 +sign. What do hackers do? Hackers take that and they go to Bank of America, Chase, M&T, American Express, and a whole bunch of other stuff and just start trying those combinations, trying to get in. Once again, they're looking for that easy target. They don't want to crack your password. They want to just guess those easy passwords for that easy win. So moving on next, it looks like it's time for our first polling question. Excellent question here. So take some time to answer it. I'd love to kind of see the results. How far along is your practice in terms of migrating clients and processes to the cloud? Take a couple minutes, answer that question. Emily, if you can see the results, I'd love to kind of know what everybody's coming back with, see how that impacts things and how the audience is doing on this trend. But obviously, the more clients, the more you move to the cloud, the more important it is to have that secure backup. There's that secure password, that secure password. Once it's in the cloud, it's even more accessible, which is great for you. It's bad for you if you keep that default password on there. That's where, if you see a lot of those stories online about the baby cams getting hacked and someone yelling stuff at a baby, 10 times out of 10, the reason it got hacked is because the default password on that device either didn't exist because it was blank from the manufacturer or is the default. And then the same thing, the Wi-Fi, to get into the Wi-Fi at that house, there was no password, or the password was just password. Once again, it's an easy target for the clients. All right, looking at it. So we're pretty well spread out across the board there. We got about a third of our audience is that you're entirely cloud-based, which is great. You've made that migration to the cloud. Cybersecurity, when you're there, is also critical. We got people making that transition. People just started, and we've got, a very small percentage that we're still exploring it to work with our clients. The cloud is really the way to go in today's landscape, especially last year with COVID. We had to work from home on both sides of our business, consulting with firms and the firm itself. And the fact that we were in the cloud on the firm side made our life so much easier. For us in New York, it was right around March 15th when things shut down and we all had to work from home. And it was pretty much a completely seamless transition. There was no disruption or what do we do? We were already working sometimes from home, and we were already fully in the cloud and 100% paperless, truly paperless. So it allowed us to just instantly transition up without any problems or disruptions. And then a few of the last minute wrinkles we had there with our clients, it just accelerated our push to the cloud and improve our processes. So for us, that push to the cloud, we were ready for, and we dealt with it, where other firms that we worked with weren't ready yet. They were kind of in that last 10%, still thinking about it. You probably had a much more disruptive year last year, trying to be virtual and trying to figure out how to make it work. So it's important to stay on top of those changes and still be excited about the cloud. So moving on to the next one, backing up data. Okay, no matter where it is, locally, in the cloud, with a third-party cloud provider, backups are so critical. And they're critical for a couple of different reasons. One, just like hypothetically, if you were still physically on premise with physical servers or a computer, if something ever happens, whether it's your computer dies, there's a fire, theft, whatever it is, you can back it up and be restored and good to go. Super critical, super important. When it comes to hacking, more and more of the hacks we're seeing today, no matter how they get in, once again, insecure passwords are a super easy way in, but once they're in, a really common one is to encrypt all of your data, ransomware, and tell you, okay, I'll unlock all your data for 10 Bitcoin, 5 Bitcoin, $500,000, $100,000, whatever it is. And we saw a couple of those last year. Probably one of the biggest and most famous, the fitness company Garmin. Garmin was subject to a ransomware attack, I think August, September last year, and all of their services, all their online services were down for like a week. They got hit by the ransomware. They never fully disclosed whether they paid that ransomware or they restored it and got it back up. So backup's super critical, no matter where it is. You need to back up your data. So if something happens, you can easily restore it. It's the same thing to tell your clients. How is your data backed up? And that's one of the biggest risks we see today with some of the small businesses that are still using some kind of accounting desktop solution. It's almost never, ever, 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 ever backed up in any shape, form, or regard. Now, we might get that as a firm. We might get that accounting file, that backup file at QuickBooks Desktop once a year. Okay, that's great. They might send it to us in March 1st for 2020. That means all the activity in that next 365 days is exposed with no way to back it up, no way to restore it at all. So it's important to locally back up your data, understand where it is, understand that it's secure. It's also important if you're a larger firm or organization and you're backing up your data yourself, offsite backup is super important. And that can be as simple as one of the business owners, one of the partners has just a fireproof safe and their waterproof safe in their house. And once a week, once a month, they take a backup copy home with them. This way, just in case the physical office, worst case scenario burns to the ground, you've got a backup offsite that you can restore from and get back up and running. Now, when it comes to backing up data that's in the cloud, it's a little bit different, but you still want to understand for all the cloud applications you have, what is the process that third party does to back up that data? What control do you have? How quickly does it get back up there? What's the downtime? What are the terms and conditions of that contract? Is there any way for you to take that data from a third party and back it up locally down on your side? Once again, to protect yourself. And that's where really this backing up data is super important with third parties to really want to understand what are their controls? What are they doing over backing up the data as well? You don't want to wait till you hear from Garmin that their data is encrypted, you can't get access to it to figure out what to do. You want to stay on top of that and really understand what the options are, what you can do with it. That's what makes it so important and so critical. And so you're sitting there today, no matter where you sit, what your role is, whether you're a CPA firm, an accounting firm, an advisory firm, whether you're a small business, what are you doing for backups? Do you have backups? Thinking about that. If you don't have backups today, get on that, get started, think about it. That's where redundancies coming in. I'm looking at the chat over here. Yeah, another story, a fire that burned the business to the ground. Couldn't be do anything because no data was backed up offsite. That simple little act of taking it home every once in a while or taking it someplace else. Or nowadays, there's a huge depth of third-party online backup solutions. Some super expensive, some super affordable. Backing up that data. The risk of hacking is on the rise. A common type of hack is that ransomware. How do you avoid that being a big issue? Is you can say, well, you know what? Yeah, they got into my system. They locked everything down. Well, you know, in an hour, I restored from last night's backup and I've lost 3 hours of limited data and I'm good to go. Throwing that old stuff away. I'm going to start fresh and move forward. You want that seamless, easy disruption. You don't want to be down. You don't want to have your business pulled offline or one of your clients. So that's a great little checklist item to add. Once again, just like the last one, when you're talking to your clients, very basic, easy conversation. Hey client, Mr. Widget, you make widgets. They're wonderful widgets. I'm also just curious, just making sure you're protected. You know, is your password secure? Do you have some kind of complex password, or here's the list of the 20 most common passwords online. Hopefully your password is on this list. You should pass this around the office and make sure nobody else has passwords on this list. Furthermore, what are you doing to back up your manufacturing process for these widgets? Do you have a third-party solution? One of my friends works at a optical lens manufacturing place in a different part of the country, and they got hacked last summer. Yeah, their backup system wasn't great, and they were down for 35 days trying to figure out how to make it work. So super critical. These things happen. And it happens to small and large businesses alone. One of the things we're seeing, and we kind of talked about this, set the stage earlier on, this global hacking business we're seeing. Hackers want money, they want hacks, and they want success stories to go up to their bosses. So a big thing we're seeing with that as they get into this is they're targeting more and more small businesses. Why? Your payout might be smaller to hack into a small widget company that has $500,000 of sales in the year versus Home Depot. But guess what? You can do like 20 of these a day. Home Depot might take you 2 months. So the ROI can smooth out between the time and effort. Some important things to think about. Another great question that came in, it mentions Dropbox or Google Docs for cloud backup of documents. And this user is asking, how secure are those services? Excellent question. What it comes down to is there's different versions of Dropbox and Google Drive. Do you have an enterprise level version or a consumer level version? And while both of them are secure and offer protection, a lot of times the consumer level version, buried in those super complex terms and conditions, is something statement from Google that we retain the right to access, own, review, analyze all the data that you upload to us forever. Okay, so most states that will be a data breach to an unauthorized third party. You know, your clients do not authorize you to share their tax returns, their payroll documents, etc., with Google forever. So you just got to watch out for that on the personal side usually doesn't work on the business side. They're asking for too much. On the enterprise level side, these terms and conditions change so much, I can't always say with a certainty, but you want to pay attention to, are they reserving the right to access that data? Are they reserving the right to comb through your data and use it for their own analytics and their own big data projects? That's going to cause a breach in most states that we see across the country. So those things can work. They're kind of simple, easy ways to get in there, but you just got to watch out for that. Nowadays, the good thing, and for even small firms, solo practitioners starting out there, an enterprise level backup solution from any of these places is incredibly, incredibly affordable. If you can't afford it, you can do something just as easy as a USB drive, back it up on a USB drive, store it in a safe or whatever. All right, another question. How do you overcome clients' objections who think they don't need a backup? Excellent question here. So really on that of rejections, there's so many stories you can tell them about what times when it went wrong. And it's really about getting them to kind of like that shock in their system of, oh my God, yes, what's that risk to me? What's that risk to my company? You know your clients better than anybody. What are some of those bigger fears that they have? Is it showing them a newspaper article from another local business that got shut down, or a competitor, or somebody somewhere else? The good thing nowadays, there's so many easy to find stories about businesses that got shut down or went out of business. It's not hard to find one, show it to them, and have it resonate home, because it's no longer then theoretical. Oh, this won't happen to me. Oh yeah, I can see this happen to somebody else that I know. Super important, super critical. Another question in here. So we're saying Google Workspace isn't compliant. I would believe, I don't know the exact details on Google Workspace. I would believe that probably is compliant, but you'd want to check the up-to-date terms and conditions. I would say Google Drive, their free consumer product, that free consumer product is not going to be compliant, because once again, Google's allowing themselves to access all of your data, which would be a problem. So it's important to kind of understand those two distinctions and differences. But yeah, backing up data, getting people to realize this, just putting that risk in front of their faces of them going out of business and not existing anymore. It's there. More and more small businesses are getting hacked every single day. The growth from 2019 to 2020 was pretty exponential in the number of small business hacks. As we all started to work from home more, hackers ramped up their effort, and that's continued to increase in 2021. So it's really not a, unfortunately nowadays they say in cybersecurity, it's not a question of will you get hacked, it's a question of when we get hacked. On the large enterprise side, we saw SolarWinds, that big hack that just took place, impacted a number of really, really large enterprise level applications and businesses, government contractors, et cetera. It's really helping your clients understand they don't want to be on this list. They don't want to be in the newspaper saying XYZ widget company was shut down and they go out of business because they got hacked and they're done. Or a fire burned their plant, just complete accident, but now there's no backups and they're not sure when they're going to get back into business again. You don't want to be a cautionary tale. And that's a great place where if you're having trouble connecting your clients to that, spend a little more time talking to your clients, not about their accounting, their taxes, the numbers, talking to them about their business like an advisor, that old age question, what keeps them up at night? Understanding that. Understand how afraid they are of their business going under or being disrupted. Once again, if they're not seeing that, maybe you need to pivot and talk to them more proactively about different things from accounting. If not, this can be a good first transition conversation for you. Going through things on the webinar today, ask that question, see what's going on, moving to roll. All right, I love it. Keep the questions coming. This is awesome. I'm always happy we can answer your questions versus just me monologuing the whole time. All right, another question here. I've got 285 different logins and passwords. Okay, good. I use a password protected Excel spreadsheet to track them. Is that comparable to a password manager? Keep it back on my thumb drive. I think it would be a lot of work to migrate to a password manager. So this gentleman's saying he's got all his passwords on a protected Excel spreadsheet. That is a tremendous, great step. The biggest benefit you will see from a password manager standpoint, that transitions a little bit of work. Once it's there, almost all password managers today, the beauty of them is they not only work on your smartphone. So anytime you're doing something here, you log into an app, you're doing something on a web application here, wherever it is, those passwords are synced up. Once you're on your desktop, laptop, wherever that is, those passwords are synced up. Everything's just in one digital place for you, which keeps it together. That's the biggest difference. Your password protected Excel spreadsheet that's backed up is great. It's just a simpler version of that. You're not going to get that benefit of, okay, I'm not home, I'm on my phone. What do I do? How do I get into it? Things like that. So that's the biggest difference. You're doing a great thing with these complex passwords on an Excel spreadsheet. At some point, I'd probably encourage you to bite the bullet and migrate to a password manager. Once you do, your life is going to be so much better for it. You're going to find just that ease of use amongst applications, and wherever you are makes your life easier. It's that same benefit of being in the cloud. Why should you move to the cloud? Well, it's always there no matter where you are, and you're on top of it. Also, most of these password companies have rather extensive security themselves, so you don't have as much to worry about on that side with something going wrong. So those are tips 1 and 2, passwords and backups. Let's move on to our third area here. And I kind of talked about this a little bit already. Secure file transfers. So important and critical. And I'll get back to that question in a second here. Secure file transfers, so important, so critical. Because it's before it was about protecting the data once it's inside your organization. What about protecting that data once it's moving outside your organization, back and forth with your clients? Because at this point in 2021, even 2018, 2016, it's pretty easy for a hacker to steal data on an unencrypted email. That's just the way I email anybody. Just directly from my phone, send them some questions, some numbers. That's super easy to get into. So we want to make sure we focus on encrypting data from point to point. As I mentioned before, several states also have laws addressing this. For example, in New York State, it is against the law in New York State, the cybersecurity law, to send unencrypted data that it contains PII. So name, address, social, bank account information, ACH, routing numbers, things like that. So you can no longer email those out from your firm. Not allowed at all. New York, Mass, California, to say the least. And if you have one client in those states, you fall subject to that. So we want to make sure we stay on top of that. So think about how can you transfer those files and that data securely from yourself to somebody else. Using secure email, encrypted email, portal. No matter what it is, there's a million different options out there. And once again, remember our analysis from before. You got to be faster than the next guy if the bear's chasing you. If you're using a secure email exchange program, hackers aren't going to try and break that. Could they break that? Theoretically, eventually, enough quantum computing time, yeah. But it's not worth their time and energy. They're not going to allocate the resources to that project any differently than you are to allocate resources at your firm to buying quantum computing power. So think about that. All right, I got some great questions coming on these topics, so let's get to it because it's right on point. Does that mean bank statements cannot be sent by email? Great question. It depends on which state you live in, and it depends what's on that bank statement. In most states, if that bank statement includes the client's name, address, and the full account number, you cannot send that by email because guess what? If you open that bank statement that says Bank of America and it says XYZ Widget Company and it says the account number is these 12 digits and you live in Montgomery, Alabama, it's not that hard to Google Bank of America, Alabama routing number. Oh, the routing number is 222-65894. When I got the account number from the bank statement that I stole, and okay, I want to set up an ACH from that account to mine for $50,000. Boom. Or theoretically, they normally do something super small. They do something small, like $1 or $2 first, just to check it out to make sure it works. That way it authenticates the transfer the first time between the two banks, and then they'll start to do something bigger and bigger. So yeah, most states, if the full account number on there, cannot be sent. At the more granular level, if it's just the last four, some states, that is still considered a data breach, because they're locking down on everything across the board. We had it recently with their healthcare company. Their online banking tool had a software glitch, and when I went to pay our healthcare bill, there was a little drop-down menu of what account you want to pay from, and there was 5 other businesses that I was in no relation to that showed up there. Didn't click those, but huge data breach by their side. Another question. I think sending from Gmail to Gmail is encrypted. Would that be compliant? Excellent question. The simplest way I can answer this, if you are in the same organization and you have like Microsoft Outlook, or you're using work Gmail, and you send stuff simply inside your organization, that's okay. It's inside your organization. If you're sending something from your Gmail to somebody else's Gmail, that doesn't get the same benefit of being encrypted. Once again, watch out. And really, most things, any kind of secure private information, encrypt it or don't send it. You know, at the end of the day, that's the best advice. Don't send almost anything via email anymore. Email is that easy steal for clients. Pivoting back a little bit, late question that came in. In terms of trusting password managers, if their systems go down or get hacked, are we still vulnerable? How do we deal with these companies' level of security? Almost every reputable password management company out there, besides just pretty due diligent encryption on top of it, all of their data is encrypted. So for example, LastPass got hacked maybe 12 years ago now, a long time ago. You know, someone got in through one of their employees' computers. And yeah, they got in, but all the data was encrypted. So like my master password and all my passwords in there at that time were not accessible. They were encrypted with, 256 kilobyte encryption, which back in 12 years ago hadn't been hacked yet. And nowadays it's pretty rare for it to be hacked. The downside is if they go down, when we talk about data backups, you might be able to be without access to your passwords for a little bit. But there's always those pros and cons to think about. So excellent thing like there. And we got a question on a specific product, Lisio, for secure document exchange. Like no matter what secure product you use, whether it's from the big players, Thomson Reuters, CCH, Lisio, which is now, I don't know if that's or not part of Right Networks or not. They all check all the boxes, no matter what it is, whether it's like, there's Adobe tools, ShareSafe, whatever it is, they all check all those boxes. The question is not so much which one to use. The question is just, you need to use one today. Like use one today. No matter what it is, use a tool today. It is not acceptable anymore for you to just send stuff out point to point. We got other users saying that List Alone is still a standalone app. It's super secure. I'm not surprised. Yeah, all of these all these file exchange tools are super secure, with the exception of passwords. If your client doesn't put a strong password on that end, someone can still get into it. So best advice, combine this all together. Really think about stop emailing almost anything. Use a portal, use a secure file transfer tool, whatever it is. Don't be that easy prey that's there. Because essentially what these hackers do is they monitor email traffic. They look for keywords or large attachments unencrypted. So some great keywords are social security number, bank account number, tax return. And they see a large PDF going through the web as that email is going from your system to somebody else's, and those packets say tax return, they're going to go right after that. They're going to try and get access to that, and you're never going to know. So stay on top of it every day. All right, moving on. The next polling question, second polling question here. What are things that keep you up at night? Ooh, when it comes to cloud cybersecurity, great question. What keeps you up at night? What keeps you up at night? It'll be interesting to see what people come with this one. Yeah, another Texan, sending PI by text is also a no-no, right? Clients tend to do this. Yep. The only good caveat there is if someone sends you stuff up encrypted, currently in every state, you are not liable for that if the data is stolen mid that transfer. So no, and it's also just difficult for us to deal with that. We don't want to be getting a bunch of stuff by text and then have to get it into our system. That's too much work for us. So you just remind your clients to I always text them back, just that standard, like, you shouldn't do this. Like, this is a risk to you. I've also seen that change in the past 12 months, that hacking's become talked about so much that there's so much more awareness of it is today than it was 12 months ago, that more and more people are aware of that and thinking about it. So moving on to our next tip here, two-step verification. Super important. No matter what you do, this is business or personal, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Microsoft, Google, whatever it is, Amazon, two-step verification is a must. And what that means is you've got your standard password, right? I need to log into XYZ platform, enter my password. It's then going to text some code to your smartphone, usually a 6 or 8 digit code to your smartphone. You're going to look at that code, you're going to type it in on the browser. That authenticates it with two things, the password and that extra device. That means someone would have to hack also your phone to gain that code off there, which not impossible. Once again, it's just highly, highly unlikely. So no matter what it is, for yourself, for your clients, personally, professionally, get on two-step verification. I use it on almost everything I have nowadays. And you'd be amazed how often things will come through that two-step that's not you. And what that tells you is somebody else out there is trying to get into your stuff. One, you need to change your password, and two, you need to be grateful you've got two-step verification set up. We use a third party to host our entire virtual desktops for all of our IT infrastructure. And you can bet every single user has two-step verification. We do not allow anybody to opt out of that process. It keeps it secure across the board. A lot of the portal products as well for the clients have two-step verification. Why? It's way more secure. The good thing too is it's become much more mainstream. The costs have come down exponentially. Even Google has a free authenticator tool that you can use and set up. LastPass has one, Duo has one. There's several other free personal level two-step verification tools that you can use to keep your accounts more secure. So great ways to keep yourself protected and secure. And finally, last but not least, this is so important, educating your clients and your employees. Education, believe it or not, is the best way to do it. And this first statistic up here is the most alarming. According to all studies, somewhere around 90% of cyber attacks are due to human error. Less than 10% is the hackers doing something super complex. It's about how do they trick somebody to do something they're not supposed to. Sharing their password, plugging a USB device that they find in the parking lot into their computer, clicking on that link that comes through, clicking on that offer, clicking on that discount code. And the hackers are getting so much more smart. Hackers might be able to monitor your email activity and find out that you are a huge, huge shopper at the Gap, right? They see your email records. They see you buy a ton of stuff from the Gap. They're going to start sending you coupons to the Gap for big discounts, hoping you'll click on it. And once you click on it, it installs malware on your computer, and then it goes from there. So continuous education is super important. We're not talking about once a year, once every 18 months reminder. We're about a continuous reminder for your clients, your employees, of some basic best practices. And when I say continuous training, we're not talking like a 1-hour CPE like this once a month. It can be short little tidbits, just a reminder, hey, watch out for the latest phishing scam, or, reminder, update your passwords. Reminder, two-factor authentication. Reminder, don't email these documents out to third parties. Reminder, don't disclose this information to third parties. Whatever you can do, constantly remind your people, your team, to stay on top of what's happening and what's important with it. Because ultimately, most hacks come down to us. Most hacks occur because of human error. And the best way to overcome that is training and education. Oh, sorry, I misspoke. No CP for this webinar. So you're just checking this webinar out for the fun, which is even better. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. So moving on, we got one more last polling question. How are you keeping your clients informed when it comes to data security? Let's see what people are doing. Hopefully you're doing something. If you're not doing something, that's a great takeaway from this webinar, is get on that. Email out, hey, I just watched a great webinar. Here's the main points from this. Strong passwords, back up your data, watch what you email, secure file transfers, two-factor authentication, and employee training. Are you doing those 5 things? If not, you really need to start it today. So let's see what people came up with here for our final polling question. All right, excellent. So last little kind of wrap-up slides, and it looks like most people are doing something. We've got some great resources here for educating your clients. Madeline, do you want to talk a little bit about these?
Yeah, so, we wanted to make sure that everyone who attended this session had access to additional materials that could help them dive into conversation with their clients, because as Garrett mentioned, one of the biggest ways that we can prevent some of these risks that we're exposed to is by having conversations that educate our clients and our teams about the importance of cybersecurity. And so these are 2 materials. They're PDFs that will be shared after the session, and you can just click the link through. One is specific to the e-commerce space, because Rewind originally started in the e-commerce space, helping people with BigCommerce and other e-commerce platforms back up their data. You can only imagine what would happen, for example, if you had an e-commerce client and their data was hacked on Black Friday or something like that, and they lost everything inside their store. And so this is a guide to really help talk to your clients, and if you have anyone who works in the e-commerce market, about how they can be securing their data. And then the other is a great multi-step guide specifically for accounting professionals that walks through some more information on some of the tips that Garrett mentioned today. And we see this as a great resource that you can be sharing inside your practice, and also using the topics and touch points inside of it to kickstart client conversations.
Perfect. Thank you, Madeline, for sharing that. Yeah, these are some great tools. Just increase your awareness, like we just talked about. Stay aware of what's going on. Gain increasingly comfort so you can help protect yourself and your clients. And hopefully, as you watch today, you never felt like, oh my God, this is super technical. I don't know what he's talking about. I'm a CPA. I work in the accounting industry. I still do some traditional work with clients. I always want to keep it relatable and easy to talk about. And Madeline mentioned some great things that Rewind does. So if you want to learn more about this amazing online backup product to keep your cloud data secure, check it out. I'm sure she'd love to, and the team would love to tell you more and more about it. So in the last couple of minutes, keep the questions coming. We've had a bunch of great questions already. Any other questions come in from the audience that we want to get to in the last few minutes?
There was a statement that I loved, the share of the idea of creating a handbook around a peace of mind statement and having a page on your website that talks about the way your firm addresses cybersecurity. But this is one piece I'd love, Garrett, for you to share about briefly, is what are the ways that firms can actually use cybersecurity and their knowledge around it as a unique differentiator compared to other firms out there to better serve their clients and attract clients that really value that?
It really comes down to the additional things we can talk about our clients. Everybody's talking about the reactive stuff, taxes. Hey, I'm going to do your taxes for you. Maybe I'll try and help you pay less in taxes. Taxes. Let's talking about something proactive, like your cybersecurity concerns. If you can do someone's tax return, yeah, they'll be happy. If you can help someone not get hacked and go out of business because you remind them about secure passwords, backing up their data, two-factor authentication, email transfers, employee training, and you keep that person actually in business, they're going to love you forever for that. And there's that difference between just they're happy you did something and being internally grateful for you for saving their business and keeping them afloat. And this is a great kind of like foot in the door conversation to more proactive work, thinking about the future than just, you're not going to go like all the way in, talk about like a strategic plan for that client, but just talk about, hey, I'm going to help you stay in business and not be the victim of the latest hack. Great way to pivot your conversation pieces. Excellent, man. Well, like I said, any other questions, feel free to hit them up now, or you can follow up afterwards. It's a great area. It's super important. Any outside resources we recommend to educate clients on cybersecurity. There is a great book by one of my colleagues, Joe Brunsman, on cybersecurity for CPA firms specifically. Let me see what that's called real quick. Should know this. Damage Control. Damage Control. Phenomenal book. It's on cybersecurity specifically for accounting firms. Great book to check out. Great reference tool. Joe's got a little YouTube channel where he talks about some of these things. So if you want to go deeper into it, he will get there. Spoiler alert, he gets a little conspiracy theory sometimes. So there is an episode about insurance for alien abduction. So keep that in mind. Keep it coming. It's a complex area. Don't get intimidated. Hackers want the easiest way in. They're not looking for complex ways to attack companies anymore. They want that easy way in. You've heard me say this again. Don't be that easy target. If you can not be that easy target, it's going to help you stay afloat for as long as possible.
And I just wanted to thank Kelly Park. She was kind enough to share her example of a peace of mind statement. So if you're curious to know what that might look like, she also shared that, this is a piece that she uses in her onboarding as a way to help clients. They sit down and have an hour-long conversation about, how do they build a peace of mind statement for their client's company. So that was a great little tidbit shared in the chat that you might want to snag before we sign off. But it looks like there's one last question.
Can we throw the book author in the chat?
Yeah. So we'll put the book and author in the chat. And any last questions, and then we'll wrap up the session. All right.
Boom, in the chat, damage control. Check it out. It's a great topic to talk about it. Don't feel like you got to get super deep in the technical. You're there just to ask that question, gauge your client's response, and help them be just a little bit more prepared than they are today.
All right.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much, Garrett and Madeline, for joining us today. That was a great presentation. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time out of your day to join us. You guys were very engaged, asking a lot of really great questions. So thank you so much. I'll be sure to get the handout and the recording of this webinar to you guys by the end of the day. Again,
Perfect.
thank you so much, and we hope to see you at the next Insightful Accountant webinar.
Thank you, Emily.
Have
Bye
a
now.
good day.